what's the best way to eat an elephant? I'm like, what? Like, what are you talking about? It's like, the best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. And then he was like, what do you do when you have too much on your plate? And I was like, you got to take stuff off your plate. He's like, yes, but sometimes you'll reach a point in life when you have so much on your plate, but everything on your plate is important. The only other option that you have is to get a bigger plate. What is going on? Welcome back to another one of our episode of Founder Fires. And today what I want to talk about is what to do when you are overwhelmed. As a founder, you are in a pressure cooker all the time. And some of the times where I have been the most overwhelmed in my entire life as has come as an entrepreneur. And it is so tough when you feel like your back's against the wall and you feel like your options are limited and you just feel all the weight of everything on your shoulders, especially if you have team. If you have people whose payroll are dependent on your competence and your ability to execute, there's so much pressure on your shoulders, and it can be overwhelming. But one of the most important things to really understand is that being overwhelmed isn't a bad thing. People think of stress and being overwhelmed as a bad thing. Something that I learned early on that I'm really grateful for is that there's two ways you can look at any given situation. You can look at all the negative sides of it, or you can look at all the ways that it makes you better. All right. When I sit down and really dissect the times where I've been the most overwhelmed, it's usually the times where I'm being stretched beyond what I feel like I have the capacity for. One of my mentors, when I was learning to be a church leader and learning ministry and things like that, he would pile so much stuff on my plate, and he would do it on purpose. I remember very vividly. I had a list of like 35 things that he had me doing. And I got to a point where I was just so overwhelmed, so unbelievably frustrated. I'm like, dude, why can't you ask somebody else to do this stuff? Like, there's just too much. And then he was like, Iggy, what's the best way to eat an elephant? I'm like, what? Like, what are you talking about? It's like, the best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. And then he was like, what do you do when you have too much on your plate? And I was like, you got to take stuff off your plate. He's like, yes, but sometimes you'll reach a point in life when you have so much on your plate, but everything on your plate is important. The only other option that you have is to get a bigger plate. And then he would just laugh. It's like, the only option you have is to get a bigger plate. And then he laughed. And those are really like the nuggets that I would get from this man. And I was like, get a bigger plate. I was like, how do I go about getting a bigger plate? Well, in order to be able to get a bigger plate, it means you have to expand your capacity of what you can do. In order to expand your capacity of what you can do, you have to increase your level of discipline. You have to be able to increase your ability to prioritize things, increase your ability to plan. It requires you to be able to think ahead and actually be proactive about what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. So if you feel overwhelmed, it's a good thing. It means you're at a point where something's about to break, something's about to tear. You'd be like, but you know what else requires breaking down in order to get stronger? Muscle. You stretch the muscle beyond the point that you think you can bear. And what happens is the muscle recovers and then it becomes stronger. The same thing with your work capacity. You have to be able to push yourself to a point where you're working more than you think you can sustain. And then something incredible starts to happen. Your body adapts to the new standard, but only if you're willing to stay in that pocket. Only if you're willing to stay in the fire just a little bit longer than you think you can. Most people, before they get to a point where they can do that effectively, back out of that too soon. They get out of the fire too soon. But they get out of the fire way too soon because they can't take the heat. So what you have to do is you have to be able to rewrite your response to the stress and rewrite your response to feeling overwhelmed. All right. And this is coming off of a conversation that I had with our team. All right. We had a team meeting, all hands meeting, everyone together. And I'm like, all right, let's share some wins. What are we excited about? What's going well? And when I tell you the team, I could just, their eyes, a lot of their eyes are just like glazed over. like, all right. Some of them were excited, but most of them were just eyes glazed over. I'm like, the thought of them thinking about what's going well, they're just overwhelmed by that. So what I had to do was sit down and reach out and be like, all right, guys, we need to come up for some air. We need to do a level set. We need to take some inventory. How many of us are feeling absolutely overwhelmed? And majority of them was like, yes, I am completely overwhelmed. It's like, well, do you think that's a bad thing? All right. And a lot of people think of being overwhelmed as a bad thing. All right. But if you can train yourself to look at it as actually, that's the point of growth, is when you feel stretched, when you feel like you're being pushed to do more than you have the capacity to do. That point is when you're actually growing. That's the point where you're actually adapting. That's the point where your body is getting strong. So the reset is, I enjoy those points of overwhelm. Over the years, I've had to train myself to respond in a positive way where I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. I'm feeling the pressure. I'm feeling things kind of mount up. I feel like there's a lot at stake. And those situations, now they light me up. All right. But that is a learned response that you have to train. It's a learned response you have to be able to drill day in and day out. And when you feel overwhelmed, it doesn't always feel good. You know, the times where I felt extremely overwhelmed and it didn't feel good was when I was going through a lawsuit. I was being drained financially. We had just taken a bunch of losses in the business, and I had to refund over $250,000 worth of refunds in about a 45-day period. And it was just like, I felt cooked every single day. But the thing that got me through it was, man, I can't wait to get on the other side of this so I can tell the story. So, honestly, in kind of like a sick, demented way, being able to get through to the other side and just thinking about the story that I can tell about those times and how it didn't kill me got me excited to endure and persevere. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling stretched, if you're feeling like there's just so much more to do than you have time to do or the capacity to do, take heart. You are in a growth season. Things are growing and your body is being forced to adapt to the new standard. Do not take your foot off the gas. Do not backpedal. You have to lean in. You have to lean in, press harder on the gas, and continue to drive forward. Because if you can do that, your body starts to adapt to the new normal. This becomes your new normal. Your central nervous system starts to regulate to this work ethic, to this new standard of being able to work and execute, and this new standard of being able to produce. You do that and you get to that point, and now all of a sudden, you don't even need to regress. You're like, wow, okay, I can do that. I didn't die. So the capacity for what I can handle is much higher than I thought. Going through that season of life where I experienced all that loss in crypto, I got sued and got to the point where we were almost bankrupt, having to refund $250,000 worth of revenue, having to let go of 5 people within a couple days because we just didn't, there's no way for us to make payroll 60 days from then. All right. Having to do all those things, I was like, man, I did not die. I made it. I was able to figure it out. And so now my threshold of just eating shit and being able to just, the pressure, the threshold of being able to just handle went up, because that's how your body adapts. At first, when you're lifting weights, 225, 2 plates feel like you're going to die. And then eventually it's warm up. At some point, benching 315, I felt like I was going to die. Now, 3 plates is a starting set of 12. Like, I start my first working set for bench at 315 and I can do 20 reps of that. Easy, right? But it wasn't always like that. And now I'm like, 4th set, I'm pushing close to 400 for 12 reps, right? As you start to grow and you get stronger, so does your capacity to carry weight and handle pressure. It becomes normalized. You don't reduce the standard. You don't lower the standard to make yourself feel comfortable. You adapt and force yourself to get strong enough to where it just becomes just another day in the office. And that's how you make yourself hard to kill when it comes to business. You make yourself hard to kill when it comes to business when you're able to endure longer than most people are willing to endure, when you're able to persevere longer, and you normalize staying in the pocket. You normalize staying in the fire. You normalize enduring the pressure and persevering to reach the goal. I just want to encourage you guys with that. Hope you find it helpful. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. What are your takeaways, right? What are the most stressful situations that you've been in? And I'd love to hear it. So till next time, stay calm, change lives, and have business on your terms. Peace.